Okay. So good evening, everyone. Once again, welcome to today's Asset Colloquium by Dr. Rajinder Singh. So good evening, everyone. From Physics, Didactic and Public Understanding of Science, Physics Institute, University of Oldenburg, Germany. He's going to speak today on lesser known but equally important Indian physicists. In fact, you may recall that he gave the part 1 in this particular series on 16th December, in which he had covered Professor Baby Ray and Professor S.K. Mitra. And today, in the part 2, the second part of his colloquium series, is going to cover N.R. Singh, S.R. Khastgir and S.D. Chatterjee. So this is a two-part kind of colloquia, and once again, I would like to thank two of our colleagues, former colleagues, Professor Alec Ray and Professor Arun Grover, who are also there in the Zoom meeting today, who are responsible for these two-part series of this set colloquium. Just in case you missed last week, colloquium, I would like to very briefly introduce today's speaker. Dr. Singh did his BSc and BD from Guru Nanak Dev University, and from Oldenburg, Germany, he did a diploma in physics, which is actually a 5-year degree course program, and wrote a thesis on characteristics of solar radiation and photovoltaic pyranometers, and which was actually published later by the German Shaker publishers from Aachen in 2012. He did his DSc from the University of Hamburg and wrote his DSc thesis, Nobel laureate C.V. Raman's work on light scattering. And his fields of research interests are generally Indian scientists and their interaction with Western scientists, Nobel Prizes, science education, and so on. As an independent researcher at the University of Oldenburg Physics Institute, he initiated the project Lesser Known but Equally Important Indian Scientists. Under this project, he wrote about all these scientists that I kind of just now mentioned about, and many more. And in fact, he is a very prolific writer. He has published 41 books and more than 150 articles in international journals. He is a member of several editorial teams of very well-known journals across the world. He is also a member and fellow of many prestigious science and history societies. So with these few words, now I invite Dr. Singh for this today's colloquium.
Okay, thank you very much for the introduction. Before I start with the topic, I would like to give some general remarks. So actually I began with the history of science about 25 years ago. Credit goes to me to start writing on Indian scientists outside India, mainly in Germany. In the following years, I initiated many projects. First of all, Sir C.V. Raman. I wrote these different books. Then the second one, Indian Nobel Prize nominator nominees. There I published 8 different books. And I had the honor to be invited by the Indian National Science Academy and National Academy of Sciences. I delivered one lecture in 2018. Similar lecture it was given at the TIFR in 2021. The third project which I initiated at the University of Oldenburg was lesser known but equally important Indian scientist. Under this project, presently I'm working on L.A. Ramdas, one of Raman's students sitting here. If some senior scientist hearing today, they can give me some information, I will be very thankful. This project began with the biographies of S.K. Mitra, Vidhu Bhushan Ray, S.C. Sarkar, K. Banerjee. All the 4 persons were Raman students. Then another scientist, contemporary of Raman, Saha and Bose, is Sneha Modatta. Then D.M. Bose. The last 2 books, they were written jointly with Professor S.C. Roy. And this book, it was published by the Bose Institute. The most exciting part of our life is, if I say our, that means Roy and Singh. This book on Viva Chaudhary, which was published in the extended form by the TIFR. And I am thankful to Professor Grover sending me this photograph showing how Viva Chaudhary is being honored today. Just a few days ago, I got one email from INSA by Professor Nautiyal, and he told me that this book is recently published by the Indian National Science Academy. In that book, you will find credit is given to us by writing the first biography of Viva Chaudhary in 2018, and then special issue Physics News from TIFR. And also INSA organized a seminar. Perchance I was the person to deliver this lecture. It is well known, meanwhile, a star is named after her. Government of India also created physics chair at the name of Viva Chaudhary. And meanwhile, there is also Bengali biography, then this German biography written by us. And very recently, I was informed by Professor Grover that there are these 2 children books which talk about Viva Chaudhary. A few months ago, I had talked with these 3 ladies who are movie maker, and most probably there is going to be some documentary film on Viva Chaudhary. TIFR started memorial lecture, National Physical Laboratory, and I believe these are the 4 women who played important role in boosting the image of Viva Chaudhary. There is another book written by us on Purnima Sinha, and this on Suman Bailey, which is written by me alone. Now, I said before, the last lecture, it was on S.K. Mitra and Vidhu Bhushan Ray. Today, I'm going to talk on these 3 scientists. First of all, N.R. Sen. The talk is based on this book and some articles. We were definitely the first persons to write biography of N.R. Sen, but before that, there were a number of good articles in the literature, as you can see from this list. As the time is too short, I'm not going to talk about each and every point given in the timeline from each scientist. I will just tell 1 or 2 small stories. Here we have one well-known photograph, Sir J.C. Bose at the Presidency College with the students, and today we well know that all of them influence the development of science in India. It is only perchance that we wrote a book on Sneha Modatta, N.R. Sen, and D.M. Bose. The next person in my list is J.N. Mukherjee, who played important role in the foundation of the science academies, and this I explored in 2020. Now, N.R. Sen and his research, I don't know how it is today. In those days, applied mathematics means subjects like statistics, dynamic for general student. Then special student, theory of elasticity, advanced hydrodynamic, then advanced spherical astronomy. That is, these are the subjects on which N.R. Singh began his research career and wrote these two articles. Now, his German connections. After the discovery of the Raman effect in February 1928, he and Meghnad Saha invited Arnold Sommerfeld, who visited India in September, October, and he was at the University of Calcutta. There he delivered some lectures. And these lectures, the notes, they were taken by K.S. Krishnan and N.R. Singh. N.R. Singh, he worked on these two chapters. However, much before that, that is in 1921-22, N.R. Singh, he went to Munich and studies first time under Sommerfeld. From there, he left and he went to Berlin, and he worked with or under Max von Laue and wrote his PhD thesis. And there he studied physics, mathematics, and philosophy. So these two documents, they show us the title of Singh's PhD thesis, that is on the boundary conditions for the gravitational field equations on surfaces of discontinuity. According to this registration certificate, his examiners were Max von Laue for physics, then Ludwig Bieberbach, mathematician, and third person from the philosophy. Now there is a long report, about 2 pages, written by Max von Laue about the evaluation of Singh's work. To sum up, we can say it is written there, the first part of Mr. Singh's dissertation deals with the boundary conditions which result from Einstein's field equations for the gravity for discontinuous area. This very important task has never been solved properly. It is solved in equation 2. Then the simple equation 1, this one, answers the question whether you have to assume that the surface will be occupied by mass. Now there are other 2 articles written with von Laue. One of them deals with De Sitter's expanding universe, and the other is on the calculation of the decrease in potentials of the ions and electrons in the presence of glowing metals. The summary of N.R. Singh's work we have given in this article, which was published in the European Physical Journal. Now, Singh is better known for his work in the field of theory of relativity, but very few know that in the beginning, he also wrote in the field of hydrodynamic. These details, they are explored by us in this article. So this is one of the very first articles. It is on the equation of long waves in canals for varying section. Then for about 3 decades, it didn't work. And in 1951, he came back to this topic. At that time, he was Ripon professor for 1 year at the Indian Association for the Cultivation of Sciences. His motivation was his own interest. Plus, he was convinced that the subject of turbulence would be playing a very important role in the development of many branches of science in future. These articles, they were published in the form of a small booklet by the Indian Association. Then one of his students K.M. Ghosh. He wrote his PhD thesis on some problems of statistical theory of turbulence. He also worked in another field, that is ballistic. Here we have one reference, one of his students, Asim Ray. He wrote his PhD on some ballistic problem. It was done in 1966. Now, what is left from Anderson today is, at least as the photograph suggests, there is a same fluid dynamic laboratory. There is Anderson is in the same building. Now the next person.
Professor.
Yeah.
Before you skip to somebody, the next person, can I ask you about
Yes.
About Oshim Ray, who you mentioned as his student? Do you know if this Oshim Ray is the same one who later on became a professor of physics in Vishwabharati University? He was a particle physicist.
I really, I don't know about this person. If you, thanks for giving the hint. I will be very happy to contact him because I have no idea about his students.
No, I mean, I think he's long retired, but I don't know. I mean, maybe.
Yeah, I can try. Thank you very much. Thanks for the hint.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay. So now you talk about Vishwabharati, it's only yes, per chance. The next person, Satish Rajan Khastgir, he had a very close contact with Tagore family. His younger brother, he's better known. He was a world famous painter, Sudhir Khastgir. He's better known than the physicist S.R. Khastgir. Now, Khastgir, he was the person, after doing his master MSc, he went to UK to work under the Nobel laureate C.G. Berkeley. From there, he sent a letter and he applied for the Pollitt Foreign Scholarship. Such information they are explored by us in this book. He tried twice, but he never got any fellowship from India. So the interesting point is, within a short time of 4 periods, he wrote his PhD thesis and DSc thesis. After returning back, he worked at Presidency College, then in today's Sri Lanka, then University of Dhaka, Banaras Hindu University, and rest of the time he was in Calcutta. So what is interesting in this story is, in his PhD thesis, as the title, it was written on the scattering of X-rays and the J absorption phenomenon. So what came out in the introduction, we read the following, that there is a difference of opinion on the nature of secondary X radiation scattered by light elements. So the one opinion that was due to Arthur Holly Compton, because he was of the opinion the emission of X radiation from the radiator was due to electrons ejected from the atoms by primary radiation. And this is supported by the change of wavelength in the scatter radiation. There is the other opinion, the opinion of Berkeley was, he was convinced that there is a new series of characteristic radiation. They were named by him as the J series because the radiation of this new series was of shorter wavelength than the K radiation emitted by the same elements. From the experiment, he was convinced that it is not scattering but an absorption phenomenon. S.R.K. Khastgir, in his PhD thesis, he studied this mysterious absorption phenomena, and what came out is, as we expected, that after the study of different materials, he found that there is some critical and certain absorption, and from his result, he concluded that this phenomena or G absorption, it is independent of the change of the wavelength. In his DSc thesis, the J transformation at scattered X-rays, he observed J1 series, J2 series in the case of aluminium and copper, and there again the same conclusions. Under certain conditions, corpuscular emission, ionization, and absorption can take place without change of wavelength. So again, this absorption was not due to change in the wavelength. Here were two more scientists from Calcutta who worked on the same topic under Berkeley. They were M.M. Sengupta and H.K. Paul. Now, after returning back, Khastgir for some time he wrote article on this topic on G absorption, but after that he left it. One of his students, he told me once that he knew his teacher very well, but Khastgir never told us that he did his PhD in UK under Nobel laureate, and he never talked with us about the G phenomenon. Anyway, according to my opinion, most probably then he realized that it was really the dead end of this field of research. And then after some time, he worked in Sri Lanka or Ceylon, and there he wrote at least one article on the radiophysics, which was published in Nature. And then he got the permanent position at the University of Dhaka, where S.N. Bose was the head of the department. Here we see one rare picture produced by Professor D.C. Malik, Bangalore. And here we see K.S. Krishnan, S.N. Bose, and Khastgir. Now, then he came to new field of research, atmospheric and radiotechnology. According to the official record, there was never such the so-called wireless laboratory. The history of the department of Calcutta Department of Physics shows that such a laboratory was really named in 1961. Anyway, as told in the last lecture, S.K. Mitra and his student, they measured the radio signal in Kolkata based on the same lines. Similar work, it was done by Khastgir in Dhaka. And here are some of the fields or subject where he worked, that is radio signal and mapping of the city of Dhaka, as I said before. Then the measurement of the E and F layers in East Bengal. Then in 1948, he came to India and took the first position at the Banaras Hindu University. And here some of the titles show that he continued working on this field. The interesting point for me here is that I was able to find at least some of the names like Sethi, Tantri, Singh, Murthy, who did PhD under him. And according to the article published in Current Science, one of his students, Ram Noor Singh, he guided different PhD theses, at least 19. In Kolkata, yes.
number 2 in your list, BA.
Yeah.
I think we have encountered him when both Arun Grover and I did NSTS summer school, either in Chandigarh or in Benares Hindu University. Just an anecdote.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the information. Okay. Then, unfortunately, I have no complete list of the persons who did PhD under him in Kolkata. Some of the names I could find was S. Ghosh, S.K. Banerjee, Miss S. Samantha, then N.R. Dhar, Suman Gongli, who later settled in the USA, and this person, Manohar Ranjan Rao. He started research under Khastgir in Banaras, and later then he also came to Kolkata, where he finished his PhD. Maybe some of you know him. He's a quite old person, about 80 years old, and he worked in Indian Space Research Organization. I was lucky to meet him, to find his address and communicate. He gave me some hints about biographies of Khastgir and his way of working. Then the next story, Shyamdas Chatterjee, entirely different type of person. He mainly stayed in Calcutta from his education till his research career. Here is a document showing that he did his PhD. It was evaluated by Blackett, Cockcroft, he did it wrong here, and then Ellis. The title of PhD was Investigations in Nuclear Disintegration. No, he got scholarship of this.
When was that PhD thesis? Sorry, you may have mentioned, but I can't.
Oh, then I have to see, I think the biography, I don't know the exact date now. I shall check again. I think it was something like 1930, something like this, but not 100% sure. Okay, then due to was Senior Research Fellowship of the National Institute of Sciences of India, and these days, INSA, he went to Canada, and from there he also got fellowship. Then from there he went to USA. He worked at different places, and before returning back to India, he went to England and Germany to visit different.
Dr. Singh,
Yeah.
just a comment that
Yeah.
he got his, Shyamdas Chatterjee got his DSc in 1945.
Okay, thank you. So then, scientists and the politics. Now, according to the annual reports of the both institutes, it is mentioned there, yes, S.D. Chatterjee, he had some accident with a car. There is no further information. But later on, one article published in the Illustrated Weekly of India tells us the entirely different story, that it was not the perchance, this accident, it was deliberately made because he was thought to be an agent of the Russians, as he often went to embassy canteen to procure rice. And then about this accident, he also then wrote to the others that he's worked in the laboratory, he had difficult problems there.
Sorry, which embassy was it, and was it located in Ottawa?
I think it was located. I will believe it was in Ottawa, but I'm not sure. But if he was living there, it must be only there.
And it was a Soviet embassy.
Yes.
Okay.
It was Soviet embassy, and those, I think most of you are from TIFR. It is really interesting story to read. Everybody knows the name Bernhard Peters, who were for a long time at the TIFR, at least 10 years. He was also from the USA. In this short article I wrote once, which a difficulty he had before he came to India. So American government was not allowed him to go. He was told to be the red in the newspapers. So that is how some of the politics indirectly works. And in USA, there is a main person, William F.G. Swan, who is actually the mentor of Chatterjee. He is the person from whom you want to know in which field he should work and all. For example, here to do something with the cosmic rays. And also, after coming back to India, he gets a position at the University of Calcutta. Head of the department is S.N. Bose. And to do his work again, he requested Swan to send him Geiger counter from the USA, and he gets the reply that the current policies of the USA government will not allow to send equipment out of the country. Okay, he applied for Mahendralal Sarkar chair at the Indian Association. He asked Swan to send the recommendation letter to Saha, who was the director, and he goes, but he never got his position. And from this letter, we see that he was appointed as the professor and head of the physics department at the Jadavpur University. So again, we got a list showing that 22 PhD or DSc theses, they were guided by S.D. Chatterjee. There are many names, and actually we had not contact with any of them. Now, his field of research, nuclear reaction, spontaneous fission. These are the three topics. The interesting part is the last one, spontaneous fission of uranium. Why it is interesting? Because there is one article by D. Bose in Current Science, which tells us that S.D. Chatterjee was the first person who observed the spontaneous fission of uranium before the Russian scientists. He wrote the article, sent to the Science and Culture, and he was forced by his boss, PhD guide D.M. Bose, who was also the director of the Bose Institute, to withdraw his article. So this argument is based on this article. And if we see the written stories, here we see a telegram sent by the Russians to Physical Review, telling about the uranium with a half time period, followed 10 to 16 or 17 years. And as far as the publications from S.D. Chatterjee are concerned, we have only these two publications. The first one, Science and Culture, published in 1944. And therein we see that according to his observation, or he is one of us means S.D. Chatterjee, the spontaneous fission for uranium, the half-life was approximately this one. So the article is from 1944. The longer article, it was published in 44-46 in the section of the Bose Institute. Again, there is given the right time period, but therein we also see in the report of the Bose Institute, this time was simply too small compared to the theoretical value of 10 power 22 years. And this was given by Bohr and Wheeler. This might be the reason that D.M. Bose was of the opinion that the time period calculator found by S.D. Chatterjee is not correct, but that is only our speculation.
Sorry,
Yes.
can I interrupt?
Yes.
Yeah, this basically brings back to my earlier question. When did he receive when was he actually involved in his PhD or DSc research? Okay, so if he's writing these papers in 44 or 46, 44 and 46, right?
Yeah.
They could not have been simultaneous with, you are saying that it was done earlier.
That is according to, yes. Yeah. This is according to this D. Bose, who wrote this article.
Look, this spontaneous fission work that Samadas Chatterjee did, that is in 1939.
Okay.
And then that is the time he wrote the first paper, and which Dr. Singh correctly said, Bose asked him to withdraw because of the difference of the theoretical value and his experimental measurement. So he withdraw that paper.
Yeah,
and
but
it is republished in 1944. The original story is of 1939.
Okay.
But what is the evidence for 1939? Is there any written evidence?
Well, if you read Amit Roy's article in Current Science that Dr. Singh has referred to, you will see more details there. And I am interacting with a student of his, and he also corroborated this story. In fact, there was a special meeting at the Asiatic Society about 3 months back on Samadas Chatterjee, one full day lecture. So that also it was discussed.
Achha, yeah. So you say there is some written evidence is only this article.
That is the current. I think the Current Science article you are referring here is by Amit Ray. Okay.
Yes.
I think that article also will put some light onto that one.
No, I think you are talking about Dr. Rajinder Singh is talking about this article which was published in 2010.
Oh, no, not that. No, this is different.
It's Amit Roy, who was our colleague in
around 18 or 19, around 2017 or 18. I think he wrote that article. So
yeah.
Okay.
All right, but again, it would be of interest to know what were his years of doctoral study, whether it actually coincided with 1939 or not.
No. See, Alok, you know very well. At that time, with both, there are many people who took a long time to write their PhD. Take Bibha Chaudhary.
No, that's fine. But on the other hand, it won't be before their MSc. Okay?
No. Samadas Chatterjee got his MSc in 1934 or something, around that time, right?
Okay. So if that is the case, then that's...
And then he was a fellow, I think Palit fellow, or I think at Calcutta University with Bose. And then when Bose moved to Bose Institute, along with that, Chatterjee moved to Bose Institute.
Okay. Yeah, that was, he moved to, I think, in 1937, huh?
Yes.
37, 38, yes.
So Samadas Chatterjee also moved along with him because he was his student.
Yeah, okay. No, according to the, first of all, my idea was, or our idea was to see, because as said by Bose, that the article was sent to Current Science. So we went to, not the Science and Culture. Unfortunately,
not Current Science, Cultural Science, Science and Culture. Yeah,
Science and Culture. No? Unfortunately, my idea was first to see whether there is any record where we can find which article was submitted in which year. Unfortunately, this record is no more there. That would have me the one chance to find out.
Only thing I think Bose Institute can help you in that if they have some record, because the Science and Culture was published at that time by the Bose Institute.
Yes.
I mean, D.M. Bose was there in Bose Institute.
Dr. Rajinder Singh's colleague, S.C. Roy was himself editor of Science and Culture for a long time. So
yes, for 17 years.
Not being able to find it, it must be very difficult to find.
Yeah, I was personally also there. So from there we know there is nothing. So that means the submission of article is, we will not find any record.
Yes, that may be true.
Okay. Thanks for the nice discussion. I enjoy it. And anyway, then there are some cosmic rays investigations, but I think this is the next most important work for which Chatterjee is better known. For example, the determination of helium, and then he also worked on the radioactivity rainwater. This he started after the nuclear tests were made by China and by Russia. So he wanted to see the effect in the atmosphere over Calcutta. He also established the radiocarbon dating laboratory at the University of Jadavpur. And some of his students or his associates like Chaudhary, Sinha, and Chandrasekharam, they give him credit that he predicted there is a huge amount of reservoir of helium exists within the crust, not far beneath from the topsoil of these places. According to the article in the Illustrated Weekly of India, Chatterjee is supposed to be the person who gave idea to the German scientist Rudolf L. Mossbauer, and based on this idea, he discovered this effect. Unfortunately, we have not found any document to prove or to disprove the statement. He was not married, and he had earned money as a professor, and in the end, then he also established the S.D. Chatterjee Research Foundation. Some of his books and documents are still existing, and that, if I'm not completely mistaken, that is somewhere in the property of the Asiatic Society in Kolkata. Here we see him standing in the Jadavpur University Laboratory. Now, as I said last time, I'm always reluctant to give conclusions because, like a modern painter, I think I present something, I leave up to the audience what he or she want to make out of this lecture, because in general, I don't know who is attending the lecture, what is his or her background. So in the end, acknowledgement for this book. In general, I would like to thank my co-authors, Suparkasi Roy, S. Roy, Utpal from Kolkata. For this book, we got information from various persons, including A.K. Singh, Gango Vadhyay, Kolkata, Siddhartha Ray, Tamil Mujamdar, the different archives like Max Planck Society, Neil Bohr Archive, Indian Association, Raman Research Institute, and then again from Berlin. For this book, there were many persons who gave us hints: Amit Roy, B.C. Sinha, Debashish Ghosh, Alok Mukherjee, and the correspondence we got from the American Philosophical Society. For this book, I was helped to get information by Arnab Rai Chaudhary from the Indian Institute of Sciences, then Dr. M. Roy, Gautam, and especially Sujata Roy, wife of S.C. Roy. They made my contact with the granddaughters of S.R. Khastgir, and they sent me some of the photographs. Of course, I am thankful to Satyanarayan, Alok Roy, Professor Grover, which I have not mentioned here now, and other colleagues from the TIFR. And as I said last time, such things mostly cannot happen only in India or in other country, that I am working with this group since 1998. I am getting the such facilities without any condition. And here you see my previous post, and this is President Vishal Komorek. And here are my colleagues. She's doing PhD to become a primary school teacher. These two, they have already finished their PhD. They are already working as science teachers in schools. And he's also trained teacher doing his PhD. She was trained teacher, and now after finishing her, she did her PhD 5 years ago in our research group, and she's still in the research group. And here the young man, Kai, I suppose he's going to become a professor one day. And just we have a new colleague, Edison. And last but not least, I would like to thank my family, my daughter, my son, and my wife. And if you want to know more, here is my private website. And if you have critical question or any information, you may contact me at these two addresses. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Rajinder Singh. Once again, very, very interesting lecture. I mean, I know lectures like this requires a tremendous amount of research and making sure all those facts, they stand both in the timelines as well as the correctness. And in that sense, I'm also thankful to some of my colleagues, senior colleagues, who also participated very actively in the discussion. I'm sure some of the information is going to be kind of useful for you to refine some more your work. Once again, it's so nice to kind of see, and some of these fields that we today talk about or probably enjoy working with, being foundations of which were laid by these people. And as really title of your project as well as this particular lecture says, there are many such great scientists about whom we have no idea, we never heard of them. Of course, we know some of the more commonly known names and popular figures, but we didn't really, I didn't know, and many others I'm sure have no idea about such foundations laid by these pioneers in those fields. So thanks once again very much. And I now request any of the participants, my colleagues who are there on Zoom, if they want to ask further questions or, or some comments, please go ahead by unmuting your mic.
Satya, I have, well, can I speak?
Yes.
Okay, Dr. Singh, I have one comment or question rather than that when you said that he has requested for this Geiger counter, that is in the 50s, right? You said.
Yes.
But I think certainly in the when he was in Bose Institute before going to Canada, he was actually an expert in making counters. That is his actually specialty. So he was making Geiger counter, proportional counter, ionization chamber. In fact, this spontaneous fission that he had seen in 1939, that's using ionization chamber built by him. Because without that ionization chamber, he could not have made actually. So he was making counters. So I'm really surprised that why he had to ask. Maybe that is a special kind of some counter, maybe. But in general, he was expert in GM counters. In fact, that was his specialty.
Yeah, thanks for the comment. I know I also understand what you say. Yeah, you are right, because there was the counter at the Bose Institute. He could have also asked at the TIFR. Yeah.
And also another point, I think this carbon dating work that he didn't started at Jadavpur University. That is, he started in Calcutta University in 1952, and then he moved in 1954 to Jadavpur University. So he really started that carbon dating when he was at Science College at Calcutta University.
Okay, thank you. I will recheck it. Okay.
Yeah. I think these are the two things.
Nice to know. And so how does this compare, Professor Mondal, with the GM counters work, B.V. Srikantan and others at TIF? So
no. So that is see, Bose Institute is much earlier. See,
Okay.
Professor Srikanth, the TIFR started in only 1945. And
Yes.
in fact, I have, if you have remembered, I have told you
Yes.
people that
Yes.
the TIFR started its journey in experimental science with instruments built by DM Bose students. Okay.
Yes. Yes.
So that he invited Mriganko Sinha to Bangalore even before starting TIFR, and he built the first cloud chamber. So this group of people in the 40s, early 40s, DM Bose lab, they are working on cloud chamber, they are working on emulsion chamber, and they are working on Geiger counters, which are used to trigger the cloud chamber. So these works, I mean, so I think it predates the Bose's DM Bose work at Bose Institute predates TIFR.
Okay. 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 No, my point is that when Srikantan started his experiments, so in that sense, are you saying that he was benefited or he was kind
That I don't know. Professor Srikantan didn't tell me about his cloud, this GM counter
GM
part,
counters?
but he did tell me about the cloud chamber part.
Cloud chamber part.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
But the
So-
cloud chamber, are you talking about the one in Uti or the one in?
No. See, the
No.
original cloud chamber, the first 12-in cloud chamber, circular cloud chamber, that was built when Bhabha was at IISc at the Cosmic
Bangalore.
Ray Unit. And he brought that cloud chamber with him to Bombay when he started, he moved to Bombay with the TIFR. So that was the first cloud chamber, and many cloud chamber was built in Uti. The Uti cloud chamber, which you have seen,
That
the
is
big
much
one,
later.
that is built by Miyake in
Miyake,
1960s. Yeah.
Okay. So it's much later.
Much
Okay.
later.
Okay. Great. Nice to get that clarification. I think Alak has either a question or a comment.
Both a comment and question. So you have referred to both all these people's, both in our sense, all three people's international connections and the times of these international connections with these foreign scientists. And in particular, you mentioned, just starting, anti-chronologically, you mentioned this thing about S.D. Chatterjee, who was requesting this proportional counter.
Yeah.
And being refused that the government policy. This is of course 1951. Around that time, it was the McCarthy era, and during the McCarthy era, this government had a complete ban on equipment, as well as often even they were quite restrictive about information transfer. Although Indian scientists, like our founder director Bhabha, they could find ways of going around it. But on the other hand, in the other two cases that you mentioned, in fact, one case you mentioned actually last time, in your talk in December, talking about B.B. Rai, Bidhubhushan Rai, having extensive contact with Werner Heisenberg, as well as Nikhil Ranjan Sen having work done with Max von Laue. Now, both these scientists were actually involved in the German atomic bomb building effort. I mean, the German effort didn't go very far. In fact, they couldn't even start they were just barely starting to do plutonium-based, uranium-based heavy water reactor, and they were quite far away from actual bomb-making stages. As Hans Bethe himself has written in a paper which he published in Physics Today about how further the German bomb research had gone. But and these people were actually at the end of the war, both von Laue as well as Heisenberg were arrested by the Allies, and they were transported back to England, where they were kept in a cottage where the British intelligence had put in secret listening devices which recorded their conversations. So, but at the same time, the Indian scientists who were interacting with them, they were probably doing it a little bit earlier in terms of their interaction. But on the other hand, this information about their being arrested by the Allies and other things where they had become public. So how do you have any archival or any other information about how the Indian scientists had actually reacted to these developments? Their colleagues working on the German bomb project, as well as some of their other colleagues were working on the Allied US, Canadian, UK bomb project out of Los Alamos, the Manhattan District project. Actually, the Manhattan District project started in New York City at Columbia University, and then it went on to other places. But for example, also this Bernard Peters that you mentioned, who was here in TIFR for almost a decade, his wife, who was a doctor, and she was employed at the Tata Memorial Hospital, now the Tata Memorial Hospital. She was also under surveillance by the American intelligence, FBI, because she was directly a member of the Communist Party of USA.
Okay.
And so, how did the Indian scientists who had these connections with all these people, how did they actually respond, or is there any information about it? In fact, Chatterjee being accused of being a Soviet agent. Canada has, of course, been a very sensitive territory, because that's where much of the Soviet intelligence about the bomb had originated, and it was the unmasking of the British physicists, both Alan Nunn May as well as Klaus Fuchs, which had origins in the Canadian embassy of the Soviet Union. And Alan Nunn May, who was the advisor of Raja Ramanna, our Raja Ramanna, when he went to do his PhD, was actually exposed by this Canadian embassy incident, where a Soviet clerk, cipher clerk, defected and gave all this information. So do you have information from the archival sources about these episodes and how the Indian scientists took them?
Unfortunately not, because just see, we have a number of biography from C.V. Raman. So most of the historian has done like this, as if a general scientist has nothing to do with the politics. So I think it is one of the really, thanks for the idea, it is one of the point where I think the search should be done. And the documents, I think we will not find in India, most will be not, maybe somewhere abroad. But I believe the last, just few days ago, I read there is one interview by somebody who writes that he had interview with that and that person who was the CIA. According to that interview, the accident by Homi Bhapa in the aeroplane crash, it was done by the CIA. But I think there is already one book, it is published even in India. I can send you the title. First, I was excited when I talked to one journalist. He said, oh, this is already written, but people do not believe this story.
Yeah, that is indeed the case. I mean, there has been speculations like this, but I think they remain speculations because there isn't really too much of a evidence-based, information.
Yes.
Especially
yeah. On the one hand, he says that he has tape recorded this all telephone calls when he was talking to that person who was the head of that particular department of the CIA. And if there is some really recording is there, then I will also believe. But before believing, I must also have some reconfirmation from somewhere else also, not only one person who is telling me the story. So that is always dangerous, just to believe one story. But I'm quite sure there must be some. I think it most might be possible in some cases to see the archives of the CIA. So from there, maybe it is possible to get information. And also, I have long ago I wrote one article about J.C. Bose that when 1920 he wanted to visit Germany, and there are really documents in the external ministry. I found some document where they are really observing what are his political opinions, what he say about German, how far is known within India. And these documents I have, they really show that the governments are interested in the work of scientists, what they're doing, particularly persons like J.C. Bose, who was well known. So this I can prove with the documents. But in other case, I think you are right. There must be much should be done on persons like Meghna Saha or Homi Bhapa.
Okay. So,
Dr. Singh, one more information that may be useful for you is that Shamadas Chatterjee, he didn't get extension in Jadavpur University, and it was really sad. Well, because of some internal conflict and things like that.
Yes.
In fact, then he was appointed by this Bose, S.N. Bose, at cultivation when he was a national professor, and that's where he started his helium work. Actually. So after his retirement, really speaking.
Yes.
Oh, nice.
I think that was at the Indian Association, right? The project.
That's after his retirement. He was appointed because as a national professor, S.N. Bose had some position available. So he gave that position to Shamadas Chatterjee and asked him to look into this helium issue.
Oh,
and that's what he started.
Very nice. Okay. I hope there are no more questions or comments or discussion. So with that, once again, I think let us thank Dr. Rajinder Singh for both the talks and also the wealth of, I think, information, and which also kind of triggered a lot of other discussion and anecdotes by our own colleagues, adding to the further information on this particular topic. And also, I hope again to have Dr. Singh once again. I hope this time it will be a physical interaction at TIFR.
Yes.
The 3 talks have been unfortunately were virtual. So I hope this time we'll see you in person, and we'll have much more wider interactions with you, as well as we also would like you to kind of talk to our graduate students. I think that will be very nice for them. It will be something which is to give them a wider perspective of all the fields in which they work these days, and who are the people who actually were responsible in Indian context to kind of like a pioneers in these fields and so on. So we look forward to such opportunity in near future.
Okay, thank you from my side also. Thanks for the invitation, and I really enjoyed the discussion today.
Thank you.
So,
Thank you very much.
I hope
And I
to-
would like to also especially thank Alak, Professor Mondal, and also Professor Arun Grover. I think they made the discussion and the talk much more interesting to all of us. Thank you once again. Good night.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.